Jiin had never imagined she would one day sell herself. Yet here she was, standing in a huge office with panoramic windows, clutching a crumpled piece of paper, a notice from the prosecutor's office. Her younger brother, Minson, was facing 5 years in prison for embezzlement. Only he hadn't embezzled anything. His boss had framed him, shifting the blame for his own schemes onto him. But proving that without an expensive lawyer was impossible. "Then you agree?" asked the middle-aged man in a formal suit sitting across from her. It was Mr. Choi, the attorney who had called her 3 days earlier and offered to meet. Jiin licked her dry lips. "I need to think it over once more." "There's no time," the lawyer cut her off sharply. "The trial is tomorrow. My client is offering 100 million won for 1 year of a fake marriage. You'll receive half right after registration, enough to hire a lawyer and pay off all your brother's debts. The other half, after a year, upon divorce. The terms are simple. You'll live in my client's house, act as a devoted wife in front of relatives and medical staff. My client is gravely ill, confined to a wheelchair. He's 82 years old. His family insists someone stay with him in his final months." Jiin swallowed hard. 82. Disabled. Final months. She would be a caregiver, a decent, well-paid one, with the official status of a wife. And if he dies before the year ends? She whispered. "You'll receive the entire inheritance, as stated in the marriage contract," the lawyer replied calmly. "My client has no children. His relatives are distant, and he doesn't wish to leave them his estate. That's why he's looking for a wife, even a fictitious one." "Why me?" Jiin looked up at him. "Why did you choose me?" "Mr. Choi hesitated. "My client has his reasons. He's seen your photo, reviewed your background. You fit the criteria." Something in his tone made Jiin uneasy. But the thought of Minson, his pale, frightened face during their last meeting in the detention center, outweighed every doubt. "All right," she exhaled. "I agree." The next evening, Jiin stood in the marriage registration hall, wearing a simple beige dress she had bought at a nearby shop for 20,000 won. Next to her sat a hunched old man in a gray suit, in a wheelchair. A gray wig, thick glasses, trembling hands covered in age spots. His face was partly hidden by a medical mask. The lawyer had explained that his client had a weak immune system. "Do you agree to enter into marriage?" asked the registrar, looking at Jiin with poorly concealed disapproval. Jiin knew exactly what that woman was thinking. A young gold digger marrying an old man for money. Let her think what she wanted. All that mattered was saving Minson. "Yes," Jiin said firmly. The old man nodded. His hand trembled as he signed the papers. 20 minutes later, Jiin walked out of the registry office as Mrs. Han, a married woman. The lawyer seated them in a black car with tinted windows. The old man didn't utter a single word during the ride, only breathed heavily. Jiin sat beside him, clutching her purse, staring out the window at the evening lights of Seoul. The house they arrived at turned out to be a huge mansion in the prestigious Gangnam district, a 3-story building with a garden, guarded gates, and countless rooms. The lawyer led Jiin to a bedroom on the 2nd floor, spacious, with a large bed and a view of the garden. "This is where you'll stay," he said. "My client's room is next door. A nurse is on duty downstairs during the day but leaves at night. If you need anything, call me." He handed her an envelope. Jiin opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a check for $500,000. "Give this to your brother's lawyer tomorrow, Mr. Choi said. You're free until morning. Good night, Mrs. Han." He left. Jiin remained alone in the unfamiliar, luxurious bedroom, holding in her hands the check that would save her brother. She sat down on the edge of the bed and burst into tears. Around midnight, Jiin lay awake in the dark, unable to sleep. She thought of Minson, of how she would rush to the lawyer first thing in the morning, how her brother would finally be released on bail, how everything would be all right again. Suddenly, the door to her bedroom opened quietly. Jiin jumped, her heart pounding wildly. A silhouette in a wheelchair stood in the doorway. "Forgive me, I didn't mean to scare you," came the hoarse, elderly voice of her husband. "I can't sleep. May I come in?" Jiin switched on the bedside lamp. The old man in the wheelchair entered the room. He was still wearing the gray suit, but his mask and glasses were gone. "Of course," Jiin mumbled, pulling the blanket higher. "Do you need something? Water?" "No," the old man slowly rolled closer to the bed. "I need to talk to you, Mrs. Han. Or rather, Miss Jiin." He raised his hand to his head and removed the gray wig. Jiin froze. Beneath it was a thick head of dark hair. Then the old man stood up from the wheelchair. Straightened. Stood tall. Before her was a man in his 30s, tall, athletic, with a strong, handsome face. He peeled off the false pads from his hands, revealing smooth young skin. "Allow me to introduce myself." His voice was now low, steady, without a trace of the old man's quiver. "Han Yunho. Your husband. I'm 30 years old, perfectly healthy, and I've never been in a wheelchair." Jiin couldn't utter a single word. She just sat on the bed, staring at the stranger with wide, terrified eyes. What does this mean?" she finally whispered. "Is this some kind of joke?" "You." "No joke," Yunho said calmly, leaning on the wheelchair. "The marriage is completely legal. You really did receive $500,000, and your brother will be helped. But there's a nuance." He stepped closer. Jiin flinched. "You're my wife by law now, Jiin. And I know your secret, that 15 years ago, you ran away from my house and frightened everyone." The blood drained from Jian's face. The room swayed before her eyes. "No," she whispered. "No, that's impossible. Remember?" Yunho's voice hardened. 15 years ago, you were a girl from the Hope Orphanage. My mother, the late Mrs. Hansuhi, took you in temporarily. She wanted to give you a chance at a normal life. And a week later, you disappeared in the middle of the night without a word. My mother was so worried she collapsed from a heart attack. The police searched all over Seoul. They thought it was a kidnapping, even murder. 2 months of hell for my family. And when they finally found you in another city, you refused to explain why you ran away. You just stayed silent. Returned to the orphanage and never spoke again. Jiin covered her face with her hands. Memories came flooding back. She was 15, thin, terrified. The enormous Han mansion that had seemed impossibly beautiful and distant. Kind Mrs. Han, who had welcomed her so warmly and promised to help with her studies. And him. That person. Why did you run away, Jiin? Yunho demanded. My mother died 3 years ago, never knowing the answer. She blamed herself, thinking she mistreated you. You broke her heart. So why? Jiin lowered her hands, her cheeks wet with tears. I can't, she whispered. I can't talk about it. You will, Yunho said coldly. Because now you're my wife. You signed a 1-year contract. You'll live in this house. And I will get the truth out of you. My mother deserves justice, even after death. He turned toward the door. Good night, wife. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. The door closed behind him. Jiin was left alone in the darkness, her whole body trembling. What had she done? Jiin didn't sleep until morning. She lay staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of that week 15 years ago. The week she had tried so hard to forget. When dawn began to creep through the window, she got out of bed and looked at her reflection in the mirror. A pale face, dark circles under her eyes, messy hair. At 30, she looked worn out. Life had not been kind to her. After leaving the orphanage, she finished technical school, worked as a receptionist at a small hotel, living paycheck to paycheck. Her only joy was Minson, her younger brother, whom she had raised after they were taken from their troubled family. Minson was a smart boy, did well in school, and got into university. But then he started working in a company where his boss turned out to be a fraud. And now her 23-year-old brother was sitting in a detention center, accused of a crime he hadn't committed. Jiin washed her face with cold water and dressed in jeans and a simple white shirt. She had to call the lawyer, hand over the money, get Minson out. But first, she had to deal with Yunho. She stepped out of the bedroom and stopped in the hallway, unsure where to go. The mansion was huge, and she had never been here before. "Good morning, ma'am," came a female voice. Jiin turned. A middle-aged woman in a white coat approached her, the nurse the lawyer had mentioned yesterday. "Breakfast is ready in the dining room on the first floor," the nurse smiled. "Mr. Han is waiting for you." "Thank you," Jiin murmured. She descended the wide staircase. In the dining room, by a large window, Yunho sat at the table. In the daylight, he looked even more impressive, broad shoulders, sharp features, dark hair neatly styled. He wore black pants and a gray shirt. He was reading a newspaper and sipping coffee. "Sit," he said without even looking up. Jiin sat across from him. A plate of omelet, toast, and fruit was placed in front of her, but she couldn't eat. "I need to go to the lawyer today," she said firmly. "To give him the money for my brother." "You will," Yunho nodded, setting the newspaper aside. "After we talk." He looked at her carefully, studying her. 15 years ago, in the summer, you were brought to this house," he began. "You were 15, living in the orphanage since you were 8. My mother was a trustee of that orphanage and often visited. She saw you and decided you deserved a better life. She offered for you to live with us, to take a break from the institutional environment and catch up with your studies. My father and I had no objections. I was 15 then, in high school. My father was hardly home, he worked at a large company and was constantly traveling. Mother was busy too, running the family business and various projects. But she tried to pay attention to you." Jiin listened, her hands clenched under the table. "In the house lived us, a part-time housekeeper, the security staff," Yunho continued, "and Uncle Sanho. My father's cousin. He often stayed with us because he was divorcing his wife and needed temporary accommodation. He was around 45 then. Do you remember him?" Jiin turned pale and slowly nodded. "I remember," she whispered. "You were in the house for 6 days," Yunho leaned forward. "On the 7th night, you disappeared. Mother woke up at 4 in the morning and found your room empty, your things scattered, the window open. She raised the alarm. The guards searched the garden and grounds. You were nowhere to be found. They called the police. It was a nightmare." Mother cried, blaming herself. Father rushed back from a business trip. Uncle Sanho was also worried and helped search. You were missing for 2 weeks. Then you were found in Busan, at the train station. You tried to go further, but had no money. Social services returned you to Seoul, back to the orphanage. Mother tried to talk to you, but you only cried and stayed silent. You refused to return to our house. You closed yourself off. The orphanage director said you wouldn't explain anything to anyone. And we left you alone." He fell silent, staring at her. A month later, Mother had her first heart attack. Doctors said it was from stress. She blamed herself, thinking she had frightened or hurt you somehow. She suffered over this for years. Why did the girl she wanted to help run away, as if from a monster? What had we done to her? Jiin closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You didn't do anything," she whispered softly. "Your mother was kind. She cared for me. Gave me nice clothes, good food, hired a tutor. I dreamed of staying in your house forever. Then why? Yunho's voice trembled with pain. Why did you run away? Jian opened her eyes and looked him straight in the face. Because Uncle Sanho molested me, she exhaled. He came to my room at night. Touched me. Told me that if I told anyone, I wouldn't be kicked out anyway, because I was nobody, an orphan, and he was family. That I was lucky to live in such a house and should be grateful. I was scared. I didn't know who to tell. I was afraid no one would believe me. And on the 6th night, when he came again, I ran out the window. Just ran, because I couldn't take it anymore. Silence hung over the dining room like a heavy shroud. Yunho stared at her, his face slowly hardening. His jaw clenched. Rage burned in his eyes, cold, terrifying. Sanho, he said slowly. Uncle Sanho molested you. Yes, Jian wiped her tears. I tried to avoid him, locked myself in, but he had his own key. I didn't know what to do. I was 15. I was scared. I didn't believe anyone would help me. Everyone I met in life before your mother always blamed children, not adults. I thought it would be the same here. Yunho rose abruptly from the table. He went to the window and leaned on the sill, silent for a long time. I'm sorry, he finally said in a low voice. I'm so sorry this happened. And that my family didn't protect you. You didn't know, Jian whispered. No one knew. I should have known, Yunho turned to her. His expression made Jian shiver. My mother should have guessed. We all should have understood. He was a good actor, Jian said bitterly, smirking. During the day he pretended to be a caring uncle, and at night. She didn't finish. Where is he now? Yunho asked harshly. I don't know. I tried never to think of him again. Yunho pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Mr. Choi? Find Han Sanho for me. My father's cousin. I need his address, his workplace, everything. Immediately. He hung up and looked at Jian again. Why did you agree to this marriage? He asked. When you saw my name, when you realized it was the same family, why didn't you refuse? Because I needed the money for my brother, Jian answered wearily. And I thought I was marrying an old man. I thought I'd just work as a caregiver for a year and never see this house again. I didn't think all this. That you. I searched for you for 5 years, Yunho said. After my mother died, I decided to find answers to her questions. I found you, learned about your brother's situation. And decided to use the situation. Lure you here, make you tell the truth. I thought you had run away for some silly teenage reason. That you were scared of wealth, couldn't handle attention. I was angry at you. But now. He fell silent. Now I understand that my family ruined your life. And you deserve every apology in the world. Forgive me, Jian. Forgive me for this deception with the marriage. Forgive us for not saving you back then. Jian didn't know what to say. She simply sat, folding her arms around herself. You're free, Yunho said. The money is yours. Your brother will be saved. You can leave right now, I won't stop you. We'll get a divorce. You'll receive the promised sum in full, as compensation for what happened. Jian lifted her head. Why? She whispered. Why have you changed so suddenly? Because I'm not a monster, Yunho replied softly. Because I don't want to make you suffer anymore. You've already suffered because of my family. Go, Jian. You're free. But Jian did not leave. She looked at the man who yesterday had seemed her jailer and today offered her freedom. Something stirred inside her, an unfamiliar feeling. And if I want to stay? She said unexpectedly to herself. At least for a few days. I want to help you find Sanho. I want him to answer for what he did, so he can never hurt other girls again. Yunho looked at her in surprise. Are you sure? Yes, Jiin said firmly. I spent 15 years living in fear and shame. It's time, it has to end. After their talk in the dining room, Yunho drove Jiin to the lawyer. The $500,000 check was handed over and all the formalities settled. The lawyer, an experienced criminal specialist, promised that by evening Minson would be released on bail, and within a week or two all charges would be dropped. He had contacts at the prosecutor's office and knew how to prove Minson's innocence. Jiin felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Minson would be free. Her little brother would not go to prison. When they returned to the mansion, it was around noon. Yunho escorted Jiin to the living room and asked her to wait. He had to make a few calls. Jiin found herself alone in the spacious room with antique furniture and paintings on the walls. She wandered between sofas and armchairs, studying framed photographs on the shelves. There was a family portrait, a beautiful middle-aged woman with kind eyes, a stern man beside her, and adolescent Yunho between them. A happy family. Jiin remembered that woman, Mrs. Hansuhi, who had greeted her so warmly in this house 15 years ago. Don't be afraid, Jiin, she had said then, smiling. Here you are safe. No one will hurt you here. This is your home for as long as you want to stay. How wrong she had been. And how dearly that mistake had cost her. Choi found him, Yunho's voice sounded. Jiin turned. Yunho stood in the doorway with a grim expression. Sanho lives in Seoul, in the Mapo district. He works as a manager at a small real estate firm. Divorced, no children. Lives alone. What are you going to do? Jiin asked cautiously. For starters, talk to him, Yunho answered harshly. Look him in the eyes and hear what he says. Then I'll decide. I'll go with you. No, Yunho cut her off sharply. You mustn't see him. It could be dangerous for your mental state. I want to look him in the eyes, Jiin insisted. I have to do it. For 15 years I was afraid even to think about him. Enough. I'm coming with you. Yunho looked at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. All right. But we won't go to his home. We'll invite him here, neutral ground. To a restaurant. I'll say I want to discuss family matters. The next day, Wednesday evening, they sat in an expensive restaurant in Gangnam. Jiin chose a seat at a neighboring table, somewhat aside, where she could watch the meeting yet remain unnoticed. Yunho sat at a separate table by the window, waiting. At 6:30 a man of about 60, portly, with thinning hair and a self-satisfied smile, entered the restaurant. Han Sanho. Jiin recognized him immediately, though he was older and had put on weight. She felt nauseous. Her hands shook. Hold on, she told herself. You can do this. Sanho cheerfully approached Yunho's table and embraced him. Nephew. Long time, no see. You've grown so much, you've become a man. Hello, uncle, Yunho replied coldly, not standing. Sit down. Sanho sat, glancing around. What a splendid place. So business is going well? I heard you took over your father's company after he retired. Yes, Yunho answered shortly. Uncle, I didn't invite you for small talk. I need to discuss something important. Of course, of course. Sanho rubbed his hands. I'm always happy to help family. Do you remember the girl from the orphanage mother brought to our house 15 years ago? Sanho frowned, pretending to recall. Ah. Yes, I think there was such a one. What was her name? Jiin? She ran away later. Poor Suhi was so upset. Exactly, Yunho's voice turned icy. Do you remember why she ran away? How would I know? Sanho shrugged. Probably she was frightened. Kids from orphanages often react badly to changes. No, Yunho leaned forward. She ran away because you came to her room at night. You touched her. Molested a 15-year-old child. Sanho's face went pale, then flushed. What? That's absurd. Who told you such a thing? She did. Jiin. I found her. Sanho jumped up, overturning his chair. That's a lie. Filthy lies. That girl was always strange, she invents things. Sit down, Yunho said quietly but menacingly. Sit down, or I will tell everyone here right now what kind of man you are. Sanho looked around. Several diners were already watching them. He reluctantly sat back down. Yunho, he hissed, you don't understand. That was long ago. Nothing serious happened. The girl is exaggerating. Nothing serious? Yunho clenched his fists. You destroyed a child's life. Because of you my mother suffered heart problems. Because of you she died without knowing the truth. Your mother died of old age, Sanho snapped. Don't pin someone else's sins on me. And anyway, what proof do you have? The word of some woman about events 15 years ago? You'll prove nothing. No proof is necessary, Yunho said calmly. It is enough for me that I know the truth. And now I'll give you a choice. Either you go to the police voluntarily and confess what you did, or I will make your life a living hell. I will destroy your career, your reputation. I'll tell everyone who you are. You won't be able to find work. You won't be able to walk the streets in peace. Sanho sneered maliciously. Empty threats. You have nothing on me. And if you try anything, I'll sue you for defamation. Try me, Yunho stood up. And we'll see who wins. A man with money, connections, and iron wool, or a pathetic pervert. He threw several bills on the table and headed for the exit. Jiin quickly followed him. Outside, Yunho leaned against the building wall, breathing heavily. Scoundrel, he whispered. He didn't even show remorse. Didn't even try to apologize. I heard everything, Jiin said softly. You were right. He hasn't changed. Yunho looked at her. Sorry you had to hear that. I know it was hard. Nothing, Jiin shook her head. I needed this. I needed to see that he's just a pathetic coward. Not the monster from my nightmares. They were silent for a while. What now? Jiin asked. Now I'll start the investigation, Yunho replied decisively. If Sanho did this to you, there may have been other victims. We need to find them. We need to gather evidence. Then he will be held accountable. On Thursday evening, Minson was released on bail. Jiin met him outside the detention center along with the lawyer. When her brother appeared, pale, gaunt, with frightened eyes, she rushed to him and hugged him so tightly he gasped. Sister, he whispered, burying his face in her shoulder. I was so scared. I thought it was over. Shoo, Jiin stroked his back. It's all behind us. You're free. The lawyer says the charges will be dropped in a week. He has evidence of your innocence. But where did you get money for the lawyer? Minson stepped back, looking at her with concern. Sister, you didn't do anything wrong? Jiin smiled wryly. Depends on what you call wrong. I got married. What? Minson froze. Are you joking? No. Long story. I'll tell you on the way. She settled her brother in a small hotel near his university, let him rest and recover. She told him a simplified version of the truth, that she had married for money, to a wealthy man who had paid her a large sum. She said nothing about Yunho, the past, or Sanho. Minson was too exhausted to ask questions. He simply thanked her, cried tears of relief, and fell asleep. Jiin returned to the mansion late that evening. Yunho was waiting for her in the living room. "Is your brother okay?" he asked. "Yes. Thank you," Jiin said sincerely. "Without your help, I could never have raised such a sum." "It's the least I can do," Yunho shook his head. He looked tired. He had spent the entire day on his computer and phone calls, digging into Sanho's past. "I found something," he said. Sanho changed jobs 6 times over the past 15 years. Each time he quit suddenly, without explanation. I contacted a few of his former colleagues. One hinted that Sanho was uncomfortable working with young female interns. That there were rumors. Jiin tensed. So he kept doing it? Possibly. We need to dig deeper. I've hired a private investigator. He will contact former female employees and talk to them. If someone agrees to testify. That could take weeks, Jiin sighed. Or days, Yunho countered. Depends on how careless he was. The next few days passed in strange anticipation. Jiin lived in the mansion, formally as Yunho's wife, in reality as a guest. They saw each other at breakfast and dinner, talked, shared news. Yunho proved to be an engaging conversationalist, intelligent, well-read, with a good sense of humor. Jiin found herself comfortable around him. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Minson visited a few times, meeting Yunho. Yunho was friendly, asked about his studies, offered career advice. Minson whispered to Jiin that her husband seemed like a good person. If only you knew the whole truth, Jiin thought. The following Tuesday, the private investigator called. He had information. Yunho put the call on speaker so Jiin could hear. "Mr. Han," the detective said, "I found 3 women willing to testify against Sanho. They all worked with him at different times. All report harassment, verbal and physical. One of them, Lee Mira, 28, is ready to file an official police report. The incident happened 3 years ago. She was an intern at his firm. He locked her in the office after work and tried to force her into intimacy. She escaped but was afraid to report it. Sanho had connections with management. She simply quit. Now, learning that other victims have come forward, she wants to speak out." Yunho clenched his fists. "Excellent. Give her my contact information. I'll pay for her lawyer. She can file the report. And connect me with the other 2 women. There's one more thing," the detective hesitated. "I dug deeper into Sanho's past. It turns out that 20 years ago, when he was still married, he was accused by a teenage neighbor girl. But the case was closed for lack of evidence. Her parents took money and covered up the scandal. The girl later moved to another city with her family." Jiin felt nausea rise in her throat. "So he's been doing this his entire life," she whispered. "Seems like it," Yunho agreed grimly. "Thank you, Mr. Yu. Keep working. Find that girl from the past. She may also agree to testify." When the call ended, Jiin and Yunho sat in silence for a long while. "How many lives has he destroyed?" Jiin finally whispered. "How many girls and women have suffered because of him?" "Now it ends," Yunho said firmly. "I promise you. He will pay for everything." On Wednesday morning, while Jiin was having breakfast in the kitchen, Minson called. His voice was anxious. "Sister, do you remember Somi? The girl from the orphanage where we lived?" Jiin frowned, trying to recall. "Somi? Juan Somi? The one 2 years younger than me?" "Yes. I ran into her yesterday by chance. She works at a cafe near the university now. We talked, and she's in trouble. Serious trouble." "What kind?" "She's being stalked by a man. He claims to be influential and wealthy. Threatens her, demands she date him. She's scared. She filed a report with the police, but nothing happened, no evidence. He's careful, leaves no trace. And when she told me his name, Sister, it's Han Sanho. Jiin dropped her cup. It shattered on the floor with a crash. What did you say? She whispered. Han Sanho. I remembered because the surname matched your husband's. Sister, is this a coincidence? No, Jiin grabbed her phone. Minson, where is this girl? Give me her number. Now. Half an hour later, Jiin and Yunho sat in a small cafe opposite the frightened girl, around 25. Hwan Somi was thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep. She nervously twisted a napkin and avoided looking at Yunho. Somi, Jiin said softly, taking her hand. Do you remember me? I'm Jiin. We lived in the same orphanage. Somi nodded. I remember, sister. You were kind. You protected the younger kids from bullies. Tell us what's happening, Jiin asked. Tell us about Sanho. Somi began speaking in a trembling voice. She worked as a waitress in a restaurant. 2 months ago, Sanho came there with his friends. He noticed Somi, started harassing her, giving compliments. She politely refused, but he didn't stop. He began coming every day, waiting for her after her shift. He learned where she lived. Started showing up at her house, sending expensive gifts, which she returned. Then the threats began. He said that if she didn't agree to see him, she would regret it. That he knew influential people who could make her lose her job and home. That she, an orphan with no connections, would have no protection. He found out I'm from an orphanage, Somi whispered through tears. And he said that people like me are lucky if anyone even notices them. That I should be grateful. I tried to complain, but he really is influential. He has friends in the police. Nobody believes me. Jiin squeezed her hand tighter. The same words. The same tactic. 15 years later, Sanho had not changed. When was the last time he bothered you? Yunho asked. The night before last, Somi whispered. He waited for me at the entrance. Grabbed my hand. Said I was being stubborn for nothing. That he would get what he wanted anyway. I broke free and ran to a friend's place, stayed the night there. I'm afraid to go home. Yunho looked at Jiin. Anger blazed in his eyes. Somi, he said firmly, from this moment, you are under our protection. I will provide you security. You will move to a safe place. And we'll make sure Sanho never bothers you again. But who are you? Somi asked, frightened. Why do you want to help me? Because he hurt me too, Jiin said softly. A long time ago. And it's time to stop him. That same evening, Yunho called a meeting. Gathered in his mansion's living room were the lawyer, Mr. Choi, the private investigator, Mr. Yu Jian, and Yunho himself. Now we have a fresh case, the lawyer said. Harassment of Hwan Somi. She is ready to testify. There are witnesses who saw Sanho harassing her. There are security camera recordings near her home showing him waiting for her. This can already be used. Plus Lee Myra's testimony about harassment 3 years ago, added the detective and the other 2 women willing to support her. And my testimony about the events 15 years ago, Jiin said quietly. I am ready to give an official statement. Yunho looked at her. Are you sure? This will be difficult. You'll have to remember everything, tell strangers. I'm sure, Jiin nodded firmly. If my testimony helps put him behind bars, I will do it. The lawyer nodded. Good. Then tomorrow morning, we file the reports. All together. I'll coordinate with a prosecutor acquaintance to ensure the case proceeds without delay. With this number of accusations, Sanho will not escape. And if he tries to run? Yunho asked. I'll track him, the detective promised. If he senses trouble and tries to leave, I'll notify you immediately. When the meeting ended and everyone left, Jiin remained alone with Yunho. Thank you, she said. For helping Somi. For doing all this. Don't thank me, Yunho shook his head. My family let this monster into our home. It is my duty to fix that mistake. He walked to the window, looking out at the night garden. You know, when my mother died, I was very angry, he said quietly. Angry at myself for not saving her. Angry at life. And angry at you, that unknown girl who broke her heart. I thought that if I found you and learned the truth, I'd calm down. That it would bring me some relief. But now that I know, it only makes it worse. Because my mother died without ever knowing she was right. That she really failed to protect you. Then her home became a trap for you, not a refuge. Jiin stepped closer. Your mother isn't to blame, she said. She meant well. She was a kind person. And if she had known the truth, she would have done everything to protect me. I'm certain of that. How can you be so sure? Because you are her son, Jiin smiled. And you are as kind as she was. You helped me and Somi, even though you could have just turned away. That means she raised you right. Yunho looked at her, and there was something warm and unfamiliar in his gaze. You are an extraordinary woman, Jiin, he said softly. After everything you've been through, you're still able to see the good in people. Their eyes met. Silence hung between them, filled with something more than just gratitude. Jiin looked away first. I should go to sleep, she murmured. Tomorrow will be a hard day. Good night, Yunho replied. But as she was leaving the living room, he called after her, Jiin? Yes? I'm glad you stayed. Glad you're here. Jiin smiled and left, feeling her cheeks burn. On Thursday morning, Jiin, Lee Mira, Hwan Somi, and 2 other women arrived at the prosecutor's office. Lawyer Choi accompanied them, explaining the procedure. Each of them gave detailed testimony about Han Sanho's harassment. The prosecutor, a stern middle-aged woman named Ms. O, listened attentively, took notes, and asked clarifying questions. When it was Jian's turn, she told everything. How she was taken from the orphanage. How Sanho came into her room at night. How she was scared and eventually ran away. The prosecutor listened with a stone-cold expression, but Jiin saw her jaw clench in anger. Why didn't you report this earlier? Ms. O asked. I was 15, Jiin said softly. I was nobody. An orphan. I was afraid no one would believe me. That they would blame me. The prosecutor nodded. Unfortunately, this often happens. But now the situation is different. We have 5 victims. There is evidence. Han Sanho will answer for his crimes. By Thursday evening, an arrest warrant was issued. Police arrived at Sanho's home. He tried to resist, shouting about his connections and making threats, but he was taken away in handcuffs. News of the arrest spread quickly. Yunho called Jiin, who was already home in the mansion. He's been taken into custody, he said. The first hearing is tomorrow. The lawyer says the judge won't grant bail, the charges are too serious, plus there's a risk of witness intimidation. So he won't get out? Jian's voice held hope. He won't, Yunho confirmed. At least until the trial. And the trial will be scheduled quickly, given the number of victims. Jiin exhaled. I can't believe this is actually happening. That he will finally be punished. Believe me, Yunho's voice was steel. I will make sure he receives the maximum sentence. My lawyers will represent all the victims. The following week, life settled into a new rhythm. Minson was fully exonerated. The real perpetrator in his case confessed under pressure from the evidence. Her brother returned to his studies, grateful and happy. Somi moved to a safe apartment funded by Yunho and started a new job. Lee Mira and the other women felt relief. Finally they had been heard. Finally they were believed. And Jiin. Jiin lived in Yunho's mansion and discovered something new about it every day. He was not just a wealthy heir. He was a smart businessman running his father's company, a major electronics manufacturer. Yet he found time to read, indulge in classical music, and make excellent coffee. In the mornings, they had breakfast together, talking about everything. In the evenings, they watched movies or simply sat in the living room, each with their own book, yet enjoying each other's company. Jiin noticed herself looking forward to these moments. Smiling when she heard his footsteps. Watching him secretly, noticing how he furrowed his brow when concentrating or how the corners of his mouth lifted when reading something funny. This isn't right, she told herself. This is just a temporary arrangement. In a few months, we'll divorce, and I'll leave. I shouldn't get attached. But her heart refused to listen to reason. One evening, on Tuesday, while they were sitting in the living room after dinner, Yunho suddenly put his book aside and looked at Jiin. Can I ask you a personal question? Jiin lifted her eyes from her magazine. Of course. Have you ever been with anyone? After that incident? Have you been in a relationship? Jiin lowered her gaze. No, she replied softly. Never. I couldn't. I was afraid to get close to people. Afraid to trust. Especially men. I had a few acquaintances, colleagues, but nothing serious. As soon as someone tried to get closer, I pushed them away. I built walls. I'm so sorry, Yunho said sincerely. Sanho stole from you not only your childhood but also the chance to love. That is monstrous. And you? Jiin asked, lifting her eyes. Have you had relationships? Yunho smirked. I have. But nothing serious. I was always too busy with work. After my father died, when I inherited the company, I had no time for a personal life. I dated a few women, but there was no spark. I always felt something was missing. Understanding, perhaps. Or just the ability to be myself with someone. And with me? Jiin whispered, surprised at her own boldness. Can you be yourself? Yunho looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he finally said. With you, I can. With you, I don't have to pretend. You know my mistakes, my family, my pain. And yet you sit here, beside me. That means a lot. A tense silence hung between them. Jiin felt her heart pounding. She wanted to stand, walk to him, touch his hand. But fear held her back. Fear that if she crossed that line, it would hurt unbearably afterward. I should go to sleep, she murmured, standing. Good night. Good night, Jiin, Yunho replied softly. As she climbed the stairs, he added, you know, I don't want you to leave. When our arrangement ends, I want you to stay. Jiin froze on the step. Why? Because you've become part of my life, Yunho answered simply. Because with you, this house became a home, not just a building with furniture. Because you matter to me. Jiin said nothing. She quickly went upstairs and shut herself in her room, pressing her hands to her wildly beating heart. The trial began 2 weeks later, in mid-October. Jiin sat in the courtroom between Yunho and lawyer Choi. Somi, Lee Mira, and the other victims were nearby. Across the table, at the defense side, sat Sanho with his attorney, a costly specialist he had hired with his last money. Sanho looked worn, aged. A month in detention had taken its toll. Yet his eyes still burned with malice. He stared at Jiin with hatred, and she had to force herself not to look away. I'm not afraid of you anymore, she silently told him. You have no power over me now. The trial began. Prosecutor M.S. O. read the charges: 5 episodes of harassment and stalking against 5 women over 20 years. Evidence, witness testimony, and security camera recordings were attached to each episode. Sanho's lawyer tried to defend his client, claiming all accusations were slander, that the women had conspired to frame an innocent man. But his arguments sounded weak in the face of the undeniable facts. Lee Mira testified first. She described how Sanho had harassed her 3 years ago while she was an intern, how he had locked her in the office, and how she had been too afraid to speak up. Then 2 more women came forward with similar stories. Then Somi. She trembled as she gave her testimony, but Jiin held her hand to give her strength. Somi spoke of the stalking, the threats, and the fear she had felt over the past months. Finally, it was Jian's turn. She approached the podium and told her story. How at 15, she had been taken into the Han family home. How Sanho had come to her room at night. How she had fled, unable to summon the courage to tell the truth. How that trauma had haunted her all her life. As she spoke, the courtroom was completely silent. The judge, an elderly woman with gray hair, listened with a stern expression. The jurors exchanged glances. Sanho sat with a red face, fists clenched. "You're lying," he suddenly shouted, leaping to his feet. "It's all a lie. I didn't do any of this." "Sit down, defend it," the judge ordered sternly. "She made it up. They all made it up," Sanho continued. "They just want my money." "What money?" the judge asked coldly. "As far as I know, you are not wealthy. None of the victims are demanding compensation. They want justice." Security escorted Sanho out, and Jiin returned to her seat. Her hands shook, her cheeks burned, but inside, she felt a strange relief. She had spoken. She had finally told the truth aloud. Yunho took her hand and squeezed it tightly. Jiin looked at him and saw pride in his eyes. "You did well," his gaze seemed to whisper. "You made it through." The trial lasted 3 days. Witnesses, psychologists, and Sanho's former colleagues were questioned. The picture that emerged was increasingly grim. Sanho was a serial harasser, choosing vulnerable victims, young, poor, those too afraid to accuse him, for decades. On the 3rd day, the court handed down the verdict: 8 years in prison for harassment of minors and adults, stalking, and threats. When the judge read the sentence, Sanho slumped in his chair, covering his face with his hands. Jiin felt the weight of many years lift from her shoulders. 8 years. He would spend 8 years behind bars. Not enough to undo all the harm, but at least something. Justice. After the trial, everyone gathered in the courthouse hall. Somi cried with relief. Lee Mira hugged her lawyer. The other women smiled, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. "We did it," Somi whispered, hugging Jiin. "Sister, we really did it." "Yes," Jiin smiled through her tears. "We won." Yunho stood nearby, watching them with a warm smile. When their eyes met, Jiin realized he felt the same. Relief. Satisfaction. And something deeper. That evening, back at the mansion, Yunho opened a bottle of fine wine. "To justice," he said, raising his glass. "To justice," Jiin echoed. They drank, sitting in the living room by the fireplace. Outside, twilight fell, bathing everything in golden autumn light. "What now?" Jiin asked. "What happens next?" "Next?" Yunho looked at her. "Next, we live. You, me, your brother, Somi, everyone who suffered. We live knowing that the one who caused us pain got what he deserved." "And our arrangement?" Yunho hesitated. "Technically, a year hasn't passed yet. We still have a few months ahead. But if you want to leave sooner, I won't object." "You're free," Jiin. You always have been. Jiin stared into the fireplace. And if I don't want to leave? She asked softly. A silence stretched. Yunho set his glass on the table and turned to her. Then stay, his voice held hope. Stay as long as you want. Stay forever, if you wish. Why do you want me to stay? Jiin looked at him. Honestly. Not out of pity, not out of guilt. Why? Yunho leaned closer. Their faces were very near. Because I've fallen in love with you, he said simply. Somewhere between breakfasts, evening conversations, and our fight for justice, I realized I can't imagine my life without you. You're strong, kind, brave. You've endured so much pain and haven't become bitter. You helped Somi, even though you needed help yourself. You're amazing, Jiin. And I want to be with you, not because of a contract, but because I love you. Jiin couldn't breathe. Her heart was beating so loudly, it felt like Yunho should be able to hear it. I'm scared, she whispered. Scared to trust again. Afraid that if I open my heart, I'll get hurt again. I won't hurt you, Yunho said firmly, taking her hand. I swear. I will protect you, cherish you, love you. I will be patient. You can open up to me at your own pace, without rush. I'll wait as long as it takes. Jiin looked at their intertwined hands, at his face full of sincerity and warmth. Something inside her began to thaw. The ice that had held her heart for 15 years was melting. I love you too, she whispered. I was afraid to admit it even to myself. But it's true. I love you, Yunho. He smiled, the same smile that warmed her from within. He leaned even closer. May I kiss you? He asked softly. Jiin nodded, closing her eyes. Their lips met in a gentle, careful kiss. Jiin's first. A real first, without fear or pain. Only warmth, tenderness, and love. When they pulled away, Jiin cried. But these were tears of happiness. I've waited so long for this moment, she whispered. The moment I could trust someone. The moment I could love without fear. And I will be worthy of that trust every day of our lives, Yunho promised, kissing her tears. They sat embraced by the fireplace until the fire slowly died down. Two people, scarred by the past, finding healing in each other. The following weeks passed like a happy, warm fog. Jiin and Yunho no longer hid their feelings. They held hands, hugged, kissed. Jiin was slowly learning to be in a relationship, and Yunho patiently guided her, never rushing, always asking permission before touching. Minson, learning that his sister's relationship with Yunho had become real, was overjoyed like a child. He visited the mansion on weekends, and the three of them spent time together, watching movies, playing board games, cooking dinner. Minson called Yunho Hyung, older brother, and Yunho responded with the same warmth. Somi also visited often. She had found a good job at a publishing house, rented a larger apartment, and was learning to live without fear. Jiin saw the girl bloom, saw the tension leave her shoulders, saw her smile appear. Thank you, sister, Somi said one day while they sat in the kitchen having tea. If it weren't for you and Yunho Hyung, I'd still be hiding from that monster. We just did what we had to, Jiin replied. You deserve protection. Everyone deserves it, Somi said sadly. But not everyone gets it. We were lucky. Jiin thought about this often. About how many girls and women suffer in silence. About how important it is to speak the truth, to believe victims. One evening in late October, while she and Yunho sat on the terrace watching the sunset, he asked, "What are you thinking about?" That we were lucky, Jiin replied. That we were able to get justice. But how many weren't? How many are still silent? Yunho was thoughtful. You're right. The system is imperfect. Victims are often not believed, even accused. Especially if the perpetrator is influential or wealthy. I wish we could do something about that, Jiin sighed. Help others somehow. Yunho looked at her. Then let's help, he said. I know a good lawyer who specializes in these cases. We can pay for legal services for those who can't afford expensive representation. Anonymously, just helping specific people. No publicity, no foundations or organizations, just direct help to those in need. Jian's eyes brightened. That's a good idea. We could help women who faced harassment and stalking. Pay for their lawyers, psychologists. And housing, if needed, Yunho added. Many are afraid to leave their abusers because they have nowhere to go. Yes, Jiin nodded. That would be right. They began acting the following week. Yunho contacted several lawyers and advocacy organizations working with victims of violence. He arranged to anonymously sponsor legal aid for those who couldn't afford it. Jiin joined in, helping select cases, talking with the women, supporting them. It was quiet, unobtrusive work. No loud announcements, no publicity. Just helping specific people in specific situations. In the first month, they helped 4 women. In the second, 7. Each time, Jiin felt she was doing something important, something right. In early November, something happened that changed everything. Jiin woke one morning feeling nauseous. At first, she thought she had eaten something bad. But the nausea returned the next day. And the next. You need to see a doctor, Yunho said, concerned. Jiin waved him off. It's just stress. Or a cold. It will pass. But it didn't. A week later, when she felt dizzy in the kitchen, Yunho insisted she see a doctor. The doctor, a pleasant middle-aged woman, examined her, asked a few questions, and suggested some tests. Just to be sure, she smiled. The results came the next day. The doctor called Jiin personally. Congratulations, Ms. Han. You're pregnant. About 6 weeks along. Jiin stood in the middle of the living room, phone in hand, unable to speak. Pregnant. She was pregnant. She was going to have a child. She and Yunho were going to have a child. Jiin? The doctor asked anxiously. Can you hear me? Yes, Jiin whispered hoarsely. Thank you. Thank you. She hung up and slowly sank onto the sofa. Her hands trembled. Her mind was a chaos of thoughts. A child. She was going to be a mother. And she had never dreamed of this. She had feared she couldn't be a good mother after everything she had been through. Feared her trauma would prevent her from loving the child properly. But now, upon learning of her pregnancy, she didn't feel fear. She felt joy. Warm, incredible joy. Jiin? Yunho's voice called. He entered the living room with a laptop in his hands. What did the doctor say? Jiin looked up at him and smiled through her tears. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby. Yunho froze. The laptop almost slipped from his hands. He set it on the table and knelt before Jiin. Really? He whispered. We're going to be parents? Yes, Jiin nodded. If you want this. I know, we didn't plan it, it's too soon, maybe. Yunho pressed a finger to her lips. I want this, he said firmly. More than anything in the world. I want a child with you. I want a family. I want this house filled with children's laughter. He placed his hand on her belly, where a tiny new life was now growing. Hello, little one, he whispered. I'm your dad. And I promise to always love and protect you. Jiin burst into tears, hugging him. They sat like that for a long time, in silence and happiness, thinking about the future. Jiin's pregnancy progressed smoothly. Yunho surrounded her with care, hired the best doctors, and made sure she rested and ate well. Minson dashed around his sister like a devoted little helper, ready to fulfill any whim. Somi visited often with treats and funny stories to cheer Jiin up. By the end of November, her belly began to round. Jiin stood before the mirror, examining her changing body, unable to believe that a person was growing inside her. Her child. Their child. What are you thinking about? Yunho asked, hugging her from behind and resting his hands over hers on her belly. That I want to be a good mother, Jiin answered softly. But I'm afraid I won't be able to. That my past traumas might get in the way. You'll be the best mother in the world, Yunho said confidently. Because you know how it feels when you're not protected. And you'll never let our child go through the same pain. Jiin turned to him. And you'll be the best father. Kind, caring, just. Like your mother was. At the mention of his mother, Yunho grew somber. It's a shame she didn't live to see this moment. She would have been so happy to have a grandchild. Or a granddaughter, Jiin smiled. Or a granddaughter, Yunho agreed. Mom dreamed of grandchildren. She would have been so happy. Jiin took his hand. You know, I was thinking. Maybe we should name the baby after her? If it's a girl, of course. Suhi. Or something similar. Yunho looked at her with gratitude and love. That would be wonderful, he whispered. Thank you. In early December, a letter arrived from the prison where Sanho was held. Yunho brought the envelope to Jiin, and she stared at it for a long time, hesitant to open it. You don't have to read it, Yunho said. We could just throw it away. But Jiin shook her head. She opened the envelope with trembling hands. The letter was short, written in uneven handwriting. Jiin, I don't know if you will read this. I don't know if I have the right to write to you. But I must say it. Forgive me. For everything I did 15 years ago. For destroying your life. For causing pain. I was a monster. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I ask for it. Here in prison, I have had time to think. To realize what kind of person I was. How much pain I caused. I cannot undo anything, but I can at least acknowledge my guilt. You were a child. A scared, vulnerable child. And I used your fear, your loneliness. There is no excuse for me. Nothing can justify what I did all my life. I am not seeking your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, I understand I was wrong. That I deserved this sentence. And if 8 years behind bars can in any way atone for my guilt, I will serve them. Be happy, Jiin. You deserve happiness. Han Sanho. Jiin slowly lowered the letter. Tears streamed down her cheeks. What did he say? Yunho asked cautiously. He apologized, Jiin whispered. He apologized. And admitted his guilt. She looked into Yunho's eyes. You know, I never thought I'd hear those words from him. An apology. An admission. I spent my whole life waiting for this, without even realizing it. And now that I've received it, I feel relief. As if the last knot inside me has finally been untied. Will you forgive him? Yunho asked. Jiin thought for a moment. Forgiveness isn't for him. It's for me. To let go of the pain, the anger. To live without this burden. Yes, I will forgive him. Not because he deserves it, but because I deserve freedom from the past. Yunho hugged her. You're an incredible woman, he whispered. The strongest I know. I learned strength from you, Jiin smiled through her tears. You showed me that it's possible to fight for justice. That it's possible not to be afraid. That I have a right to happiness. We both deserve happiness, Yunho said, kissing her forehead. And now we will have a family. A real family, full of love. In mid-December, they officially divorced, so they could immediately apply for a new marriage. A real one, without deceit or contracts. A marriage for love. This may sound strange, Yunho laughed as they drove to the registry office, but I want to marry you for real. No wigs, no pretense. Just you and me, starting a new life. I want a real wedding too, Jiin admitted. Small, only the closest, Minson, Somi, your father. Father will be happy, Yunho nodded. He's wanted me to settle down for a long time. And now not only am I marrying, but I'm becoming a father. Yunho's father, Mr. Han Tae-sun, was genuinely pleased. When Yunho told him the whole story, about Jiin, about Sanho, about how it all began and ended, the old man listened with a stern face, then hugged his son. You did the right thing, he said. You restored justice and found love. Your mother would have been proud of you. He met Jiin and asked forgiveness for the family's failure to protect her 15 years ago. We were blind, he said with pain in his voice. We let a predator into our home and didn't notice how he hunted a defenseless child. My wife died with that guilt on her heart. Let me at least make it right now. Let me accept you into our family as a daughter. Jiin cried and hugged the old man. He stroked her back like the father she had never had. Welcome to the family, my daughter, he whispered. Welcome home. The wedding took place at the end of December, in a small chapel in a suburb of Seoul. Only the closest were present, Minson, Somi, Yunho's father, Lawyer Choi with his wife, and a few friends. Jiin wore a simple white dress, which hid her growing belly. Her hair was loose, with minimal makeup. She looked happy and radiant. Yunho stood at the altar in a dark suit, and when Jiin entered the hall arm in arm with Minson, his eyes filled with tears. You're beautiful, he whispered as she reached him. And you're handsome, Jiin smiled. The ceremony was short and warm. They exchanged vows, real, heartfelt promises to love and protect each other through all of life's circumstances. I vow to protect you, Yunho said, looking into Jiin's eyes. To love you every day. To be by your side in joy and sorrow. To build a family with you, full of love and happiness. To heal your wounds and let you heal mine. You are my love, my wife, the mother of my child. And I am grateful to fate for every moment with you. I vow to trust you, Jiin replied through tears. To open my heart to you. To love you without fear. To be your support, as you have been mine. To build with you a home where our children will grow up safe and loved. You restored my faith in people, in happiness, in the future. And I will love you forever. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Yunho kissed Jiin as gently as if she were a fragile treasure. The guests applauded. Minson wiped his tears. Somi sobbed into her handkerchief. Even stern Mr. Tae-sun smiled. At the small celebration after the ceremony, they drank champagne. Jiin had a non-alcoholic one, ate cake, laughed, and shared stories. I remember the first time I saw my sister after she got married, Minson said. She looked so happy but also scared. I didn't understand what was happening. Now I do, she was falling in love. Opening her heart for the first time in her life. And I'm so glad she opened it to Yunho Hyung, he added, hugging Yunho. You're the best brother-in-law in the world. And you're the best brother, Yunho smiled. Jiin is lucky to have you. Somi approached Jiin and hugged her tightly. Thank you, sister, she whispered. For everything. For saving me. For showing me it's possible to live without fear. For being the older sister I never had. Thank you, Jiin replied. For your courage. For agreeing to testify in court. We won together. When the celebration ended and the guests left, Yunho and Jiin returned to the mansion, their home, officially theirs now. They stood in the living room, the same one where a few months ago Yunho had revealed the truth about who he was. Who would have thought, Yunho smirked, that a fake marriage with an old man in a wheelchair would turn into real love? Fate, Jiin smiled. Or justice. We were both seeking answers. You for your mother's past. Me for my pain. And we found each other. The best thing that ever happened to me, Yunho said seriously, is you. You are the best part of my life. Jiin placed his hand on her belly, where their baby grew beneath her heart. Now the best is just beginning, she whispered. Our family. Our future. Without fear, without pain. Only love. Yunho leaned in and kissed her, long and tenderly. Only love, he echoed. 6 months later, on a warm June day, the first cry of a newborn echoed through the maternity ward. A girl. Healthy, rosy-cheeked, with tiny fists and a mop of dark hair. Jiin held her daughter in her arms, unable to tear her eyes away. Yunho sat beside her, wrapping his arms around his wife's shoulders, looking at the baby with adoration. Hello, Suhi, Jiin whispered. I'm your mom. And this is your dad. We've been waiting for you so much. We will love you always, Yunho added, gently touching their daughter's tiny hand. Protect you. You will grow up in a home full of love and safety. I promise. The little girl yawned and tightly grasped her father's finger. Yunho laughed through tears. She's strong, he said. Like her mom. And kind, Jiin smiled. Like her dad and the grandmother she was named after. They sat together, 3 of them, a new family born from pain and fear, but built on love and forgiveness. There was a knock at the door. Minson entered with a huge bouquet and a plush bear as big as himself. May I meet my niece? He asked shyly. Of course, Uncle Minson, Jiin laughed. Come here. Minson approached, peered into the blanket, and his face lit up with a smile. She's beautiful, he whispered in awe. Just like you, sister. Then Somi entered with gifts, Mr. Tae-sun with a serious but happy face, friends, and colleagues. The room filled with laughter, joy, and congratulations. Jiin looked at all these people, her family, a true family not by blood but by heart, and felt boundless happiness. 15 years ago, she had been a scared child, running from a home that was supposed to be her salvation. She had lived years in fear and loneliness, thinking she would never be able to trust anyone, never be able to love. And now here she was, a happy wife, a loving mother, surrounded by people who valued her. She had healed her wounds. Helped others heal theirs. Found justice and forgiveness. And most importantly, she had found love. What are you thinking about? Yunho asked softly, once the guests had left and the 3 of them were alone again. That sometimes the darkest moments in life lead to the brightest, Jiin replied. If it weren't for that terrifying week 15 years ago, if it weren't for the desperate situation with Minson, if it weren't for your plan with the fake marriage, we would never have met. Never have loved each other. And this little girl wouldn't have come into the world. Fate works in strange ways, Yunho agreed. But I'm grateful for every twist that led me to you. He kissed Jiin on the temple. I love you, my wife. And I love you, my husband, Jiin smiled. Little Suhi slept quietly in her arms, seeing the first dreams of her life, a life that would be full of love, protection, and happiness. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in pink and gold. A new day was ending, but for the Han family, a new era was beginning, an era of healing, joy, and boundless love. A story that began with pain and deceit ended in the most beautiful way, true happiness. Because sometimes you must go through darkness to truly appreciate the light. You must know fear to learn to trust. You must endure lies to find the truth. And you must forgive the past to build the future. Jiin, Yunho, and little Suhi were proof that love conquers all. That justice exists. That even the deepest wounds can heal with the right person by your side. Their story is a story of how it's never too late to start over. That the past does not define the future. That everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. And they took that chance with both hands.